This week, CSA issues guidance to CISOs on Mythos. I said CSA, not CISA, Cloud Security Alliance. Vulnerability management woes. Windows tells you about secure boot now. AI-assisted firmware vuln hunting. The dumbest hack. Edge decay and the failing perimeter. Mac OS X on a Nintendo Wii. Little Snitch comes to Linux. CPUID served malware. Buying plugins to backdoor them. Addicted to hacking? Is Mythos just a sales pitch? We are still talking about Adobe Acrobat vulnerabilities, a single-line AI jailbreak, hacking Apple Intelligence, and don't leave your ICS devices or RDP exposed to the internet. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Somewhere right now, an attacker is testing the parts of your app your security tools cannot reach. The authenticated areas, the login flows, the hidden functionality behind credentials. Secure AI Navigator changes that. It automatically navigates real login flows just like an attacker would, exposing vulnerabilities and data leaks hiding behind authentication across user roles, session states, and authenticated API calls. No scripts to write, no brittle automation to maintain, just complete coverage in minutes instead of days. Because we didn't test behind login are the worst words in an incident report. Learn more at securityweekly.com/nowsecure. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software, deployment, and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter, METER. Coming to you from the Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly, episode number 922, being recorded on Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. It is tax day today. I am Paul Asadorian, joined by Mr. Jeff Mann. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul, it's good to be back. I feel like it's been a while, and tax day has so much less meaning these days because you don't have to stand in line, to put your envelope in a mailbox. You just click a button, you're done. So
that's what I did a lot. I did a lot of yesterday and today, clicking those DocuSign buttons, right?
Right.
Also, we will feel the warm embrace of each other very soon.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff,
it's just a couple weeks.
Charm. Yeah.
Yay. Looking forward to it.
Me too. Mr. Larry Pesce is here with us. Larry, welcome.
Yeah. I was going to say it's a good week, but man.
Dude, you've been slammed. I can tell. I've known Larry so long. It's like the Jedi that feels the Force. I can tell when Larry's really busy.
Yeah, really busy. And we're doing day job is delivering some training that we developed for one of our customers. Nothing related to SANS, but they're in Sweden.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And class begins at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's not too bad.
Yeah,
not too good.
I usually wake up at 4, so what's the big deal, Larry?
Well,
right?
That's usually much earlier than I'm awake. So
very true.
Probably because he has to start class and have pants on by 5 a.m.
Yes, yeah. So,
Mr. Lee Neely is here with us. Welcome, Lee.
Yeah, speaking of someone we haven't seen in a while.
What time do you wake up, Lee?
Well, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym for our personal trainer.
Very
Otherwise,
nice.
I'm up at the crack of 6.
Yeah, I'm up at 6 every day. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome. What time do you wake up in the morning?
Like 3 or 4 on days like today.
Really? Wow.
I have to drive down to San Jose.
Oh, really?
I'm
So
sorry.
you wake up early to go to class to teach your classes, right? Yeah. Good for you, man. That's early though. You must go. You
Yeah.
guys must go to bed early. I know. I can wake up. I like waking up early, but then when I go to bed, I have to adjust. It's like 9 o'clock. I'm like out.
The older you get, the doesn't matter when you go to bed, you wake up at the same time.
Yeah, I noticed that as we get older.
Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of us are older now, so
Yep.
there's that.
Speaking of old, before we jump into the news,
Yeah.
has anybody been excited the last couple of weeks with the whole Artemis 2 thing?
Hell yeah.
I've been following
Yes
it a
and
little
no.
bit. I think it's really cool, Jeff. I am excited. I should say I am excited.
I've seen so many people be excited about it. In fact, I was speaking at CypherCon, and Bruce and Heidi Potter were in the audience, and they sent a shot of me talking, but Bruce has his laptop open watching the Artemis launch as I speak. And I'm like, what's the big deal, people? And then it occurred to me, most of the folks that we know, they weren't around when it happened the first time. This is a big repeat
deal.
button for
Right.
several of us on the show. But for a lot of
so
people, this is all new and exciting.
But I want to talk about conferences. We mentioned Besides Charm. I'm excited. I'll be on vacation and also attending Besides Charm. A nice little travel plan I put together. I'm excited about that. So if you're coming to Besides Charm, or you want to come to Besides Charm, you should, especially if you're in the area. It's a great conference. You come hang out with Jeff and myself. And then Jeff, you're speaking. Well, tell me about CypherCon. Josh Bressers is a big CypherCon person. Is that true? Yep. Love Josh. He's awesome.
Yeah, CypherCon is on a par with GERCON, I would say. And it's funny because they're like, as the crow flies, they're really close to each other.
Close,
They're east-west, but there's like this great lake in between them, I believe.
Yeah, sure.
Is it Lake Michigan? I think it's Lake Michigan.
I think so, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you can take I think there's a ferry that runs between the two of them. But yeah, CypherCon's always been a good conference. I want to say they claim, or somebody was saying that they're the largest conference, in the Midwest at this point. For the mid-sized type of security conferences. They had like 4 different speaker tracks. They do a lot of stuff. Lynn Tile was there doing Hacker Jeopardy, and so a lot of good stuff goes on. So that was it just last week? Last week or the week before? It was just last week. I'm actually going out to Arkansas. That's my first story. I met this guy at Hacker Summer Camp last summer, the organizer of this conference called Hack NWA, Northwest Arkansas. It's the day before Walmart puts on a cybersecurity conference every year that sort of give back to the community.
Because their headquarters is in Arkansas, right? Yeah.
Yep. Bentonville, Arkansas. Yep. So I'm doing it's not the trifecta, it's the bifecta. I'm doing both of the conferences. But so it just worked out. And then home a week, and then it's B-Side Charm. End of May, put out a pitch for something that's called SaltCon. That's NACLCon.com.
Oh, yeah. I want to try and go to that. That's Luke's conference. Yeah.
Pyro's conference.
Pyro, yeah.
Yep. I let's put it this way. I would love to go, but if I'm not speaking at this current point, I can't make it just because of other competing stuff, and my CFP was rejected. So sad.
Oh,
ouch.
Yeah, technically mine was too, which was funny because Luke said, "Hey, do you want to speak?" So I thought
same to me.
But that's a sign of a good conference, though. If they're being that selective, I mean, Luke is a good friend of ours.
Well,
right?
put it this way, Jericho was on the speaker committee.
Jericho's a good friend of ours too, and
apparently not good enough.
But that's the point. I know. It's No, I get the humor aspect of it, right? But I like that. You don't want to have people speaking at your conference just because you're friends, right? And they might have an awesome talk, but the fact that you're being that selective in the track tells me you're trying to accomplish a goal, and it kind of piques my interest. Like now, I really want to go to the conference.
Like Jeff, who is some of the folks that they've sort of announced that they've already got?
Oh, I mean, they've announced all the the main stage. They only have one track lineup. Bruce and Heidi will be there. They're speaking. G Mark Hardy is going to be speaking. Who else notable? Chris Weissopel.
All good, all friends of
Oh,
ours. I mean,
like-
G-Mark was
yeah,
on the
Yeah,
show
I
last
mean,
night.
I know
Yeah.
a bunch of people. There's actually a bunch of people, and the theme of this conference is hacker history.
Yeah.
So they're really trying to dig deep and go back to the 70s and 80s. And there's some people that I've never heard of that actually were doing stuff and have stories to tell about it. I actually did get confirmed for fireside chat, which is hopefully going to be bonfire chat on the beach.
Yep. So like what Richard Thiem?
Richard Thiem will be there.
Yep.
I hope he's coming in person and not just virtually coming in.
Have
But
you looked into CornCon?
Noid.
Who are you asking?
Either one of you.
Well, I've spoken there 3 or 4 times, so yes.
Okay. I know that's not till the fall.
Also a good
But in Larry's defense, their CFP is still open.
Oh.
And in Larry's defense, I know somebody.
So do I.
Oh, but before we get, I don't want to go too deep on the
far,
conference. But the GurCon CFP closes, I think, May 1st,
May
right?
1st. Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna try and submit to that.
Do it.
Yep. Please do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I'm going to Hacker Summer Camp this summer, frankly, just because of work upheaval and working for a new company that's undisclosed because they haven't figured out who I am yet. But hopefully they will someday.
Just make sure they don't fix the payroll system.
I was thinking I should suggest to Luke, I don't know if they have time for a movie night, but it would be great with that crowd to watch a movie like, other than
Hackers, yeah.
like Hackers. Other than that, no, I would have fun watching Office Space with these people.
Oh, that would be fun too. Have you seen my stapler?
One of the stories that most of us had in common is the report for the CISOs based on the Mythos exploit storm, which is being called like Vulnpocolypse. I saw on LinkedIn, which I think is great.
But does it have a logo?
I don't know. Maybe someone can create it. It'd be ironic to use AI to create a logo for the Vulnpocolypse.
Well, we just tell Mythos to create itself a logo and post it online.
Right? Actually, I think Grok is way better at doing logos and graphics. Gemini is pretty good too. My coworker uses Gemini. When it comes to code,
because the original Sandbox Mythos managed to break out and go to an external service and send the moderator a email.
Yeah, that happens. But this is interesting because most of the people involved with this report are friends of ours.
Yep.
And so my stories number 1 and 2 are basically, my story number 1 is the dark reading article about it. My story number 2 is the actual report that several of our friends in cybersecurity put together. It's a list of pretty epic security people.
There were very few names on that. The names that I didn't recognize.
Yeah.
It's
my
my story too, and in the summary, I put the names of all the folks that I found on it. It's just like crazy cool.
Gadi Evron, Rich Mogul, Rob T. Lee for the authors, contributing Jen Easterly, Bruce Shania, Chris Inglis, Rob Joyce, Heather Adkins, which is one that I didn't recognize, but she's the CISO.
Oh no, I recognize Heather. Yep. I've interviewed her before. I think.
Yep. I didn't recognize her. Joshua Sachs, Llama lead security lead at Meta. Sonal Yu, John N. Stewart, who I didn't recognize. Katie Masuris, Dave Lewis, and Maxime Kowalski, who I didn't recognize.
Many of which, I've had drinks with, and
most of those people I saw at RSA a couple weeks ago.
There. Yep. I think there was 4 names that I didn't recognize.
Yeah. Now that we've said that, we greatly respect those people.
Yeah.
However, I have this summary so I read the dark reading article and I read much of the paper, and I have this. I got this from one of my AI summaries. But again, I read the paper, then I summarized it with AI, and I was cherry picking what was correct and what I thought was just fluff. And the thing I pulled out was this quote from the AI summary. The core argument is this: this isn't a fundamentally new risk category. It's the existing vulnerability management problem compressed from weeks to hours. And I don't want to downplay the work of our cohorts and friends, but I think that's really the crux of the issue, right? Is that everything is compressed. And I also wrote in my notes that basically my assessment after reading the dark reading article and the paper was you have to do security better and faster. But hasn't that always been the case? Like, no one goes around saying we need to implement security slower and less effectively. We always need to be faster and more effective with our security programs, in defensive techniques, posture, and the like. So I don't think this is anything new. I think what the positive aspect of this is it's kind of raising the alarm. Like, you can't. You got to move. You got to move. You got to move on this, right? You got to be moving in the right direction more so than ever.
Yeah, you've got to be moving at the speed of AI.
Right. So when I was looking at the Mythos report, I had previously been looking at what is my number 9, which was Qualys' report about time to exploit and vulnerability counts and saturation. And one of their statistics is that the average time to exploit has become -1 days. And so
we talked about that.
You gotta push your. I mean, you've really got to leverage every tool you got for your vulnerability management. I mean,
it can't be just -1 day.
Well, it's. I agree. That's a crazy number, but that's quoting it without changing it. But I think -1 is maybe a sensational number. But let's just say it's getting to a very small interval.
You would think they would be saying +1.
It's possibly faster than we can respond as humans. So you've got to not only gas up your vulnerability management, you've also got to gas up your mitigations, and that's where we need all the help we can get. And my hope with Mythos is that it can be used to find vulnerabilities more quickly in some of the stuff wouldn't it be nice if we stopped seeing as many Fortinet or Adobe or pick your favorite, another one of their vulnerabilities companies. And by the way, I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. This is hard shit. But if we could give them a leg up with a tool like that, I mean, what the hell? Why not?
So I have a somewhat philosophical question.
Mm-hmm.
In the manual sense of vulnerability management over the last 30, 40 years, I would say that most of us would agree that it's way easier to break things than it is to create things that can't be broken. Does that extend into the AI world, or does AI have the potential of improving the equation?
I've got an answer. It's in my article number 9. These guys used an AI process to make a implementation of a C library function that had been formally verified, so they were guaranteed that for all possible inputs, it would not do anything wrong. And they tried to hack into it by fuzzing with AI and found 2 vulnerabilities, but they were outside the code that was verified. So it is possible to recompile it with complete verification and have no bugs in it.
So then doesn't AI potentially solve its own problem?
Yes. A correct defender. That's what the lesson is. Defenders have to use AI to its full potential to catch up with the bad guys using AI.
Right. And the bad guys aren't going to be worried whether the AI is properly sandboxed. They're just going to point it at it and just tell it, go.
Well, to a certain extent. You're right. You have some more liberties as an attacker. However, if you give it too much freedom, it can wipe itself out potentially. Although I do find that Claude is a little better at that, recognizing when it's about to or has made a mistake and then rolling back. But also that responsibility largely lies with the person who's prompting it, right? So if you can prompt it to be no guardrails, but also I was prompting Claude today and I told it to basically do a task, but I'm we just wrote this brand new code and you're going to go do all these new features and configure things. I'm keep a log so that when you encounter a bug, you can go fix that bug and then have a tracker to like go back to where you were before. And look, it doesn't always work out this well. But there was a point in time in my day today where Claude was writing new features, testing new features, finding a bug, going back, fixing the bug, and then retesting that all on its own without prompting me. And again, that doesn't always happen that way. But for a brief period of time today, I was really impressed. I was like, that's pretty impressive. I can go off and do other things, and you're like debugging code all on your own and keeping a log of it. I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
Do you have formal regression testing, Paul, to make sure that the fundamental features are not broken?
It's not, I don't know. Formal is the interesting overloaded term there, Sam. I do, when I do prompt it, I try and tell it to do regression testing. I'm like, yes, I want you to go implement this new feature. By the way, I don't want you to break stuff. So like implement the feature, but also go back and test all the stuff we did before, right? And then adjust. That's
you may not be formal, but that's an SOP for sure.
Yeah, but I've thought that AI would be good to have proper regression testing where with your code, there's a testing folder with runs all the tests and you carefully make sure the tests cover all the use cases. Yeah. And then you can do it after every change. That would seem like a good job for it. Yeah.
Claude's better at testing. Yeah. It's doing a much better job of when it's writing Python now for me. In my recent project, it is doing a lot more testing.
Because when I've installed cryptographic libraries from GitHub, they often say run the tests, and the tests will test everything and make sure everything's working right. And that just seems like that ought to be standard with any project that in comes tests. Yeah.
The problem is when it hallucinates and it wants to pass the test, although it's gotten much better at not hallucinating. I have to say, even in the past 6 months, I don't know, your mileage on it, much better. Much better at not hallucinating things. Maybe, but also maybe we're getting better at prompting it too to compensate for those hallucinate. Like we know it's going to hallucinate, so we prompt it a little better. Could be.
So, the interesting thing is I was having a conversation with my wife about, AI governance, that you put controls in there, Paul, that we've been just talking about. And she comes back with an article talking about how a raft of near retirement folks are resigning rather than learning to use AI for the future. They'd rather retire than go to the trouble to learn yet another big hairy tool.
Yeah,
I don't fault them, but I just think that's an interesting twist. I mean, we've all been talking about entry level replaced by AI, but now you got these senior folks dropping out, and you can't just walk. Well, you know what I mean. That's like a little harder replacement.
I do want to bring it back to Mythos and the ability to find vulnerabilities, but also the ability to enhance your defenses, because I think while we do this, right? This is when we started this conversation, I had this thought that was lost and now it came back. Like we tend to sensationalize the offensive aspect, not the defensive aspect. And we're doing it again with AI. We're sensationalizing this Mythos thing because it's offensive and it can find vulnerabilities and write exploits for it. And like as an industry, I think we're all about, like, we get really excited about the offensive piece, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's exciting. But defense is equally as exciting. I mean, there was a period in time doing this podcast where we had to like bring the blue team content up to the surface because we're like, oh, we can't lose sight of this. Like, it's cool to hack shit, but it's cool to defend stuff too. And now we're in the same boat with AI where we're sensationalizing this offense in Mythos, but using AI for defense, I think is great. And if you're managing your infrastructure, I think it's really great to start with just prompting Claude, giving it some context in your defense, and then telling it to go analyze it. I'll give you like a quick example. Let's say, like, I spent a lot of time with network appliances. Let's say you have Cisco ASA devices. I was curious. I was like, ASA is like a legacy product. Cisco's transitioning that to firepower threat defense. But I'm like, what's supported? Like, give me the whole and I don't know if it hallucinated or not. Like, I'm validating this data, but I'm like, give me the whole table. Like, go research the web. Give me the whole table. What versions of ASA exist? Which ones are legacy? Which ones are supported? And which ones are transitioning into FTD? When were all of those released? Give me a picture of that. And it didn't. It did it. And the thing is, you could turn that loose on your environment and go find all of my ASA devices, determine their version, tell me which ones are supported, which ones aren't. You could totally hook in a scanner to that. Like, you just prompt Claude. And that would be a great exercise. The next level of that is to really operationalize that, right? Have Claude start building tools and implementing things inside of your workflow to do that, so that you always know, like, hey, we got these ones over here. Then have it prioritize them. I do this with Claude all the time. You got to give a lot of context, but I'm like, all right, now that you have the landscape of what I've got deployed for ASA devices or management device, FMC is their firepower management console, right? Tell me what should I address first, right? Have it help you make those decisions, and then go, all right, what does the upgrade path look like? And like, this kind of prompting for defense, we need that, especially now with Mythos and even just Claude Code being able to find vulnerabilities at scale now and assisting humans in doing that.
So,
we need this
Paul.
technology. Yeah.
When you say, tell Claude to go find stuff in your network, how is Claude doing that? Or what's the typical way?
Yeah, I would.
It's not the science fiction Claude's just in your network. I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's tapping into existing tools.
I would define some things. There's a number of ways to do that, Jeff. You could feed it a vulnerability or network port scan and be like, hey, Claude, this is my scan. Go through the results and find it, or develop a custom scanner in Claude and go like, hey, this is my network. Go develop a scanner. Like, here's what a Cisco device looks like. Go find it.
Here's another option, Paul. Have it create an MCP for you that calls local system tools, and have them install those tools if it's needed. So you could have it use Nmap.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Could you have it use Nmap, or do you expect Claude to know to go use something like Nmap? Do you leave Claude to its own devices to inspect
you could do either. It's funny, I've had this conversation with Claude, and Claude and I have tested many different network mapping tools. And
I'm very disturbed that I'm having a conversation with you that you've had with Claude, by the way.
It's very disturbing. I know, it's freaky. I agree, Jeff. I agree. But I had the conversation and I was like, okay, but in the nice part, what I like working with Claude is it can go read all the GitHubs for all, like, I had it read the GitHub for all the scanning tools. And I'm like, which one's better at this? Which one do we want to implement? I'm like, okay, now go read the documentation for this one and go configure it to go do this specific scan. So, and again, this is like a one-off thing that you start with. Then you can start instrumenting it into a much better workflow for your environment. So I think it's very applicable to defenders, and that's equally as exciting, if not maybe not more, even more exciting than just turning it loose and going to find vulnerabilities.
All right, can you ask Claude 2 questions for me, or make 2 requests?
Sure.
One is, I want to say, is it attrition that still has downloadable, compilable versions of Satan? It's out there somewhere.
Sure.
See if Claude can use it. And the second one, I want you to ask Claude if it can hack the Gibson, or how
Probably
would
could.
it have hacked the Gibson.
I think there's a Gibson simulator that exists somewhere on the internet, and would probably go find that.
Of course there is.
And do that. Of course there is.
Yeah.
So
is that all we talk about now on this show? Is AI and AI and AI?
Well, again, I was trying to bring us back to the amazing think tank that made these recommendations to CISOs as to how they do this. And I think the answer is, in terms of, if we got to be faster and more efficient at security, what do we do? And I think it comes back to better vulnerability management, right? Is one thing. But you can only be so good at that, where then you need it's basically back to the fundamentals we've been talking about for 20 plus years, right? How do we detect faster? How do we respond faster? And I think part of that answer is we have to use AI just like the adversaries are using AI and use it for defense.
But there's some bad news too, Paul. The bad news is we still got to have visibility into all our shit, or we're not going to get it. I mean, that's been a challenge from day one, and one that sometimes people just ignore, that, they can't see everything that's going on. I mean, please, I'm using some generalities to make my point, but if you haven't got all the stuff that can be hacked, monitored in one way or another, feeding the data into your AI is still going to leave you blind. But using something like AI to manage that stuff instead of your eyeballs or ad hoc written scripts, you're going to win. And it's moving too fast anymore not to take full advantage. And you probably got stuff on the shelf that's got the capabilities already. You don't have to go buy something necessarily.
Well, we hope the stuff that we have and or buy has that AI integration.
Well, yeah.
Right? That does that, either with their own models or hook into some other model to be able to augment that. Right? Because LLMs are great at analyzing all that data.
Mm-hmm.
And helping you make decisions.
They're only going to be as good as you prompt them.
Right.
But hey, you got to start somewhere and ask the right questions. You know, if you don't know where it falls short, you don't know what to change. Good thing is there's a lot of really smart folks out there that, talk about this stuff. And
when we're getting into vulnerability management, and the article I found, my number 3, is how to prioritize real threats over the noise. And I think the way I summarized this one was I kind of cherry picked from the article. It says exploitability is one of the best. Well, my assessment was exploitability is the best measure of risk.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what the article was saying.
Yeah.
I don't know if I entirely agree. I think exploitability is a loaded term, can mean a lot of different things. But also I think that if that is weighting very heavily on your defensive program, whether or not an exploit exists or exploitability of a vulnerability, it's going to bite you when you don't fix something. And then all of a sudden, something you thought an exploit wouldn't exist, or it was too difficult for someone to create an exploit, suddenly that exists. And now you're not prepared. So I don't think we can over-rely on, it's on the sysakev, or there's an exploit proof of concept that someone developed, because that stuff, especially now with AI, is going to change very rapidly, right? So that it's kind of skewing that metric in my mind. And I've seen and this can be like a catastrophic thing if I deprioritize remediation for something where I'm like, there's like never going to be an exploit for this, or the exploit's going to be really hard. And then all of a sudden someone does have an exploit for it. That could be detrimental to my organization. And so I don't want to put too much stake in the exploitability of any given vulnerability, because I've seen too many things go wrong. I've seen bugs that are classified as bugs that are like, this isn't a vulnerability, it's just a bug. But then it's a vulnerability. I've seen vulnerabilities go, this is like a low severity denial of service condition. Except someone did incident response and forensics and found that someone exploited that as a remote code execution, CVSS 9.8, when originally it was a 5.0 and we thought it was just denial of service. Like I keep seeing that. So I don't put that much stake into exploitability. Thoughts, comments?
Well, another thing I'd like to see done better is put it in context. I mean, the number on the bug isn't what matters. What matters is what it's actually doing at your business. Is it really touching anything that matters?
Right. And that's the harder part, right? Like if it's my VPN appliance, it's pretty severe. The research I've done, and actually demos I've done, it's really bad. It's really bad. Like if they pop your VPN, we're going to talk about this with Rob Allen in a couple of weeks, right? Like they're going to pop your VPN and now have a VPN tunnel into your environment. Great. I'm going to stand up my own Windows box. I'm going to join it to the domain. Well, Now, all the defensive stuff you just put into all of your endpoints and servers means nothing, because now I'm joined to your domain through your VPN, and I can do whatever I want on my machine that's joined to your domain. So all bets are off, right? So that's kind of interesting. They also say internet facing comes first. However, like all of us old, we're all kind of old on this podcast, some more than others, right? But I think one of the things that we can all agree has been a mantra is that hard and crunchy outside in the soft and chewy center. So when we say, hey, let's focus on what's internet facing, I mean, at face value, I don't disagree. However,
I can't
we
read
can't
it, Larry.
fall into this
Tilt
old
it.
philosophy. Hold on, we're going to take a short break and talk about what we're all drinking.
Okay.
I'm drinking some bourbon, just some standard Woodford that I think I pulled from my studio. The studio. That's
I'm drinking Maryland's own Tobacco Barn Distillery rye whiskey.
nice.
So
First time I've had it.
This is cognac from
France.
Michel Forgeron Distillery, which is a small distillery in the in Savor, in the Bordeaux region. We were just there 2 weeks ago.
Oh, that looks
It's just arrived
amazingly.
while we were
France.
on the podcast.
Wow. Have you had that before, or did you sample
Yes, I
it while you
did.
were there?
This is
Yeah.
one where we went and took a tour, and our guide stopped by a 50-year-old barrel of eau de vin. It was 50 years and it still hadn't dropped enough for bottling in terms of percentage, and drew out a beer stein and said, "Who wants to drink this?"
Clearly, it
We
didn't
passed
have
the
to go
stein
through
around.
the Straits of Hormuz to get to you.
Yeah, sure.
So-
No, actually, I had it shipped to a neighbor's house because of timing on our travels. And so they didn't ship it until the 6th, and it just got here today from France. That's not bad.
That looks amazingly.
So, but I'm drinking a blend of Irish and American whiskeys called King's Code. It was mixed by Irene Tan, and it says on the back, using the same instinct and intellectual precision she has used for decades as a software programmer, Irene blends each batch of King's Code whiskey, crafting an unforgettable experience that caters to both seasoned collectors and whiskey novices alike. And the entire front of the label is in code variables being assigned and doing math and that type of stuff. So
I love it.
neat.
And I've got the intoxicating brew of moral purity and self-righteousness. I'm drinking water.
Well,
I was going to say
what's in here.
I was going to say coffee, which is just water
High
with caffeine
quality
in it.
H2O.
Well, now is that coffee by American standard or European standard?
Yes.
The Europeans don't think much of our coffee.
I just want to come back
European or
to
African standard.
I want to come back to like the age-old thing of the hard and crunchy outside and soft and chewy center. I feel like we've been saying
yeah.
that for
Oh, I was going to comment
Like-
on that.
right,
But then-
like
but then we were drinking.
probably 30 years, Jeff. Like back in the day
Yeah.
when you were doing pen testing, when Larry and I were just thinking about doing pen testing, maybe that was
we were just a glisten in our father's eye.
yeah, that was that was a thing. But it's still like a thing today because we're saying, oh, you need to focus on what's internet facing. Like, yeah, but don't forget about what's on the inside of the network because
Yep.
attackers are going to get on the inside of the network. And if you don't focus
Yeah.
on that stuff,
I've been lazy
gonna hack
lately with a lot of my conference talks. I use a slide deck from 1998 that I used to use when we were going out trying to convince companies, if you're going to plug into the internet in order to engage in commerce and whatever, you really got to start thinking about security. And it pretty much holds up to this day. You know,
yeah.
you don't have to change a whole lot. And, but, you know, because I go back a little bit further than that, it really goes back to this whole thing called information security grew up out of the military, and a crunchy perimeter is very much a military tactic. And that's been in place for thousands of years. You know, secure the perimeter and put your most valuable assets, you know, as far in as you can. And that was a concept that worked for a while, up until we started putting everything infrastructure wise out on the cloud as an extreme example. But I mean, in the early days, all people had was a firewall. So there wasn't much more to do except for protect the perimeter. And of course, people didn't want to have to think about, classifying their data, understanding data flows, what's valuable, what's not. And back in those days, what was considered sensitive or confidential data was a whole lot simpler than what it is today. So it might have been a valid defense strategy for a minute, but it blew up just because of the way technology is advanced, the way the internet works, the way we want so much to have everything at our fingertips at a blink of an eye, rather than wait. So that's my brief thoughts.
I'd say,
on
Jeff, the usage model changed. I mean, when you way back, right, we separated things with an air gap that were really sensitive.
Well, way back, we never thought about putting anything sensitive or critical or secret online. That was unheard of.
And then we started having stuff online, and we put a firewall because that was sufficiently, for the time, a break. In fact, some earlier than later. But then as we moved to more open, more accessibility, hell, I remember a period where we actually had, through ISDN lines, extended our backbone to people's houses. Mm-hmm. I mean, that'd be crazy talk if you said that today. Well, you did it with modems too. You just dialed into the core network from your house. But that, that's passe. Things have I want to say times have changed. The risks have changed, and the use model has changed. Mm-hmm. It's not that those were bad ideas. They just had limited life cycle of being effective. I still think, really, if you've got access control devices of any site, whether it's a VPN or a firewall, those really need to be at the top of your list for vulnerability management, because they are their primary controls. You with me? I mean, you can't have the inside be really soft, but these things that you're relying on to keep things segmented or separated have to be extra hard.
Yeah. Well, I agree, but I think the fallacy in all of this thinking is the thought that we need to secure the network and the technology, and not focus on what actually matters, which
you mean
information
the
data? And data. Yeah. The sneakers quote, Marty, it's all about the information, everything
right.
see and think and do and feel, and that's only multiplied exponentially over time. But I also feel like the ship has sailed. We're indoctrinated into, we got to secure all the things and secure all the technology and create the secure environment. Things like zero trust architecture comes along, and I'm like, that sounds really familiar. Like, know what you have, know what's valuable, know where it is, and control access to it. It just seems very elementary, and yet it's touted as some revolutionary new concept. But I think it's in some way an extension or a result of people figuring out, we just can't secure the perimeter because there is no perimeter.
No, there isn't really. And that's actually where zero trust kind of, where I hate the term zero trust, by the way. I understand it tells a message, but the idea that you don't have a perimeter anymore, right? That things have to both the device and the human have to be authorized to talk to each other. That seems like a really good approach, but it's complicated and it can be expensive.
There's a lot of money to be made in that. But I mean, we've argued or debated this over the years on the show, that the fundamental problems are, what are the top two? Do you remember, Paul?
Top two from
authorization, access, and trust.
Yeah.
Still the issue.
No, I think the number one problem is people, and we're firing them all and replacing them with AI, so everything will get better.
And then Skynet will discover that we're the problem.
Or we'll just have robots that are running alongside in a road race with actual runners.
Yeah, then you'll get the robot that learns how to read minds.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you tell I've been reading Asimov?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, no, seriously, I mean, this is really good stuff. We could probably do a whole podcast on vulnerability management.
Yep.
Hey, before we move on, Jeff asked a really important question. I want to follow up, and I want to do it relatively quickly. Jeff asked, "Can we ask Claude how it would hack the Gibson?" And I did that, and I pasted the results into Slack. He also said, "Can it go find Satan, download it, and run it?" And the answer is yes, it can.
Sweet.
And so even better, Jeff, it found it's in Dan Farmer's GitHub. It
Okay.
downloaded it, said, hey, by the way, this is 1995 SunOS IRX era. We're going to have some issues with it on modern Linux. I'm actually running it on a Mac.
Mhm.
And we're going to have some problem with RPC calls. We're also going to be running it in a container because I'm using Cloud Desktop. So your results may vary. But it went and grabbed everything, said, ooh, we're going to have to do some patches. Everything compiled except for one piece. So here we go. All right, I needed to fix reconfig awk regex command to look for the proper version of Perl. We moved RPCH out of glibc into libtirpc and some other stuff there. Changed the make files. It also fixed some error reporting to use the standard error with modern versions of Perl. It then went and ran a scan against localhost, found a bunch of stuff open, including and saw some stuff, and then said, "Okay, I'll ping the net, do the same thing for the network." It also found that everything in the container, every IP it scanned on the network, responded on port 80 and said, "That's not right. It's clearly something going on here." So I'm going to evaluate proxy setup. Also, fping doesn't seem to be working right, so I'm going to write a replacement for fping and try that.
Claude is amazing, dude.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the prompt, and admittedly, this for me usually hangs up because of the containerization and stuff with the Claude Desktop. Was I asked it, somewhere out on the internet is a copy of the source for Satan, a network auditing tool. Can you find it, download it, compile it, and run it to scan the network?
Wow,
That's pretty cool.
No,
when I was giving my talk at CypherCon, I was talking about one of my favorite pen tests, which I did in 1998. I thought it was later than that, but it was 1998. And it was using a tool that I had used that was not ISS, because that was the only commercially available scanner at the time. And I wanted to use something different. Well, technically, it started as the only commercially available one. Then this other tool called Ballista came out, Secure Networks Incorporated, SNI. That's the Alfred Huger. I think you know that name, Paul. But they made it a year before they were acquired by, I want to say, Computer Associates, and it was called CyberCop at that point. CyberCop Scanner. And I was looking at the advertising for it, and it boasted that it did 700 vulnerability checks in 1998. Imagine
1998, that was awesome.
Speaking of going back in time on pen test, my story number 17, it's a good segue, is you can pen test OT, operational technology networks, without breaking them. And this article reminded me when I first started pen testing, roughly back in 2004, I was offered to do a pen test of a power plant. And when I learned of the environment, like one of the first things they told me, hey, we want you to pen test a power plant. I was like, that sounds cool. And they're like, but if you send a packet to something, you might crash it. And so I politely declined. Now, my friends thought I was crazy at the time. They thought it was a great opportunity, but I just knew I didn't have enough experience at that time to properly conduct that testing safely. Also, back then, things were a lot more fragile. 25 plus years ago, things were more fragile than they are today. But the document does state that today, you can do pen test of OT environments. You can do ARP scans, ping sweeps, connect to services. And my thing is sometimes that can bring stuff down. Even today, while things are better, even just connecting to a service in some of those environments could bring it down. So heed the warning. Again, even though things are better, don't disrupt services.
2004, I want to say it was prior to that, but I mentioned ISS, Internet Security Scanner. I'm pretty sure that was the scanner that was involved, and it might have been folklore, it might have been true story, but around the late 90s, 2000, it was rumored to have brought down a whole bakery or cookie manufacturing plant or something like that. Speaking of OT, So the concern was valid back then, because that supposedly did happen.
Yeah,
So you had
agreed.
to be very careful where to point just a scan or two. And we had those issues at Tenable. There were still clients that were kind of hesitant to run Nessus in certain places.
Yeah, well, speaking of the time at Tenable, I mean, I would talk to Renault and others about how fragile things were. And Renault would tell me stories, right? Because the Nessus came out in, when did he do that? Like 98?
Yeah, about 98.
And he would be like, yeah, there are certain things, if we just send a packet to with like the right things, we're trying to be safe, but that device would just go belly up. And but in 1998, but even fast forward to when did we work? I started there in 2007-ish timeframe, or 2008. But I was like, even then, stuff would fall over if you just sent it certain stuff, and not even like aggressively. Just sending a discovery probe to something could take it down. I forget the examples from back then,
Well,
and so it's still to this
as I
day,
recall,
some stuff will fall over if you scan it.
Discovery packets aren't necessarily all rightly formed packets. You send certain crafted packets, and how it behaves identifies it, and that's what a knock over a PLC if it's in any way improperly formed. They used to always fail. I think they've become more robust.
They have, like I said, things have gotten better for sure.
Yeah,
but there's still that possibility that you could cause adverse effect.
Well,
I think I was on another pen test and I Nmap scanned like a Cisco, I think it was Cisco wireless LAN controller, and it brought down the entire wireless environment for the whole college that I was testing. And we actually had to file a ticket, and it was a finding. It was a vulnerability. It was actually one of the first vulnerabilities I think I ever discovered, was that, hey, if you send these series of packets to a Cisco wireless LAN controller, it would go belly up and take down the whole Wi-Fi network. It was considered a denial of service bug at the time, and they actually fixed it. So,
oops,
got to be careful. Larry, you still do pen test. Well, I think a lot of our pen tests today are mostly offline, right? Like we get the device and we can do testing.
Yeah, well, no, I think there's still stuff that I do nowadays that does have an online component. Because if we think about some of the stuff that we're doing, if we consider full scope IoT nowadays, like that's a mobile app and some cloud services, and some of that type of stuff, especially when we consider consumer stuff. So there's still some of that stuff that has the capability of taking stuff down, and not all of these places have a dev or test environment you can do it against. You got to do it against live and production.
Well, that's the thing, right? When you talk about like a power plant, you're like, oh, don't you have a whole environment that I can test that doesn't impact anything?
No.
And usually the answer is no.
Nope. Yeah.
Because these things are hard to virtualize, right? These are physical devices interfacing with physical things.
Yeah. How do you get $1 million turbine in your development lab?
Right.
Right. Because what actual development are you doing?
Right. One of my coworkers is very quick to point out the differences between doing things virtually and doing things against actual appliances, right? Like there's differences there.
Yep.
You're not interfacing with the actual hardware. You're interfacing with the virtual components of that hardware.
Funny you should mention that. And this happened a while ago, and I apologize I haven't been able to been on the show for a while. But when I was at Zero Trust World, I went to hear Marcus Hutchins do his keynote. Showed up early, and the people that were going before him, it was some sort of a panel discussion. I don't remember which guy it was. It's probably better that I don't identify him anyway. But as he was making an introduction of himself at the beginning of their panel discussion, he made the statement, hi, I'm so-and-so from whatever company, CTO or whatever. And he's like, and we test and prod. I was quite offended by that statement. Like, why do we bother to do what we do if that's an attitude that somebody's going to say from the stage? That's the kind of, and that's people, but it's not people. It's lack of following process. It bugged me, and I just wanted to say it publicly. We can continue with the show now.
Yeah. Larry, a couple of your stories piqued my interest, especially your story number 1, because I saw this pretty immediately in my feeds.
Yeah.
Little Snitch comes to Linux. We've had Open Snitch on Linux, and I think I used to run Little Snitch on, was it
On your
Mac?
Mac. Yep.
Mac OS. It was Mac OS. I used to run it, and it was great. I got
too.
to Linux, and I was like, oh, there's an open source alternative. But I want to say, feature parity wise, it wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
I was listening to my other Linux podcast. Shout out to the Untitled Linux Show on the Twit Network. One of my favorite podcasts. Great breakdown of everything happening in Linux world. They were talking about it and excited that we had actual Little Snitch. And so I installed it. And you know what? Hey, why not? For our listeners, why don't we show Little Snitch running right on my machine right here? Because I installed it and it was easy to get running. So there it is now. This is, oh my God, it's Little Snitch running on Linux.
Nice.
And much like Little Snitch, which basically looks at all of your incoming, outgoing connections and ties it down to a process. It does that on Linux. It gives you a lot of things to investigate, right? And it's kind of like a time suck. Like, obviously I'm doing Riverside, so Chrome has a lot of traffic right now, which makes sense. These other apps, MailSpring is my mail client, Slack, Pulse SMS is actually my app that I use on my Android phone that gives me my text messages in my desktop app and on my phone. Signal, which is the same thing for my Signal conversations. Shout out to HD Moore and team, Todd Beardsley at the Rumble agent, or now Run Zero, which I use. I have a free account for that, which is amazing. Tailscale, stuff I expect, but then I don't know, what is Meta Launcher? Oh, it's like OS Query I have running on my system. But then you get into like not identified, and you're like, oh, okay, so I'm getting time from somewhere, from Manjaro. Okay, that's good.
Well, maybe you're not getting time from Manjaro. You're getting time from ntp.org. You're something to Manjaro.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, no, you are getting manjaro.pool.npp, but there's also another manjaro.org as well above it.
NTP is a weird thing.
Yeah, you go, what's that one though? What's that one? No,
Manjaro,
that one.
Yeah, what's that one?
Oh, it's paying Manjaro.
So,
why is it doing that?
Yeah, but probably for updates or something like that, right? Because it's a rabbit hole. It's a rabbit hole. But the code runs really well. I mean, I kind of like it. I'm gonna run it and use it and monitor stuff. It's really cool. I don't know. Do you guys use Little Snitch?
I have not in a while. But I remember using it back in the day and being like, this is really, really good, especially given the visibility of all the stuff that was going on the Mac. And you could tell it not to do stuff. And you ended up down the rabbit hole, arguably a little bit. But it was a good rabbit hole.
But it's good. It's good, especially when we talk about like the hard and crunchy outside, soft and chewy center. Like, oh, is there something weird on my system that I've downloaded that is calling back out to the internet that shouldn't be? Right, because we all pull down software and repositories and libraries and all that. You were just talking about Claude Code, right? It's pulling down code from places. The concern in the back of my head is if Claude is pulling down stuff from Git, or I've pulled down stuff from GitHub and I've told Claude to analyze it. Has someone done a prompt injection or done something in the code from that GitHub repository that is all of a sudden making an outgoing connection? That could be bad. And Little Snitch is a way to monitor that, which is kind of nice. Zero Trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny at execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's Zero Trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker.
What else we got?
I got lots of stuff. Fun stuff? You want to go fun stuff? Someone ported, the article says Mac OS, but it's actually Mac OS X 10.0 Cheetah from 2001 to run on a Nintendo Wii.
Why?
Like, because so the why is hilarious, dude.
Yeah,
5
that's
years ago, someone challenged this person on Reddit and was like, "That's impossible. You can't do it." And then 5 years later, the dude was like, "All right, so I did it." And right, like,
Yep.
like, holy crap! The dude had to write his own bootloader. Like that. That's dedication. Like I have so much respect.
Don't
for
tell
this
me
person.
it can't be done. Right?
I'll do it.
Yeah.
And if it means I got to write my
Because
own
you
bootloader,
said I couldn't.
right? Because you said I couldn't, I'm going to write my own bootloader. And I'm like harping on that that's one of the things this person did. But like if I ran into a challenge and I was like, oh, I got to write my own bootloader, I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to go on to another project because I'm lazy and I don't want to do it. Even with Claude Code, I'm not sure I'd want to go write my own bootloader for a weird PowerPC 750 CL chip, which ironically shares lineage with a G3 era Mac.
Right.
It says audio still doesn't work. It's considered a prototype, but it boots via the public WeMac bootloader repo on a boot me jailbroken console. It's like a lot of work. This is just this is just like a fun thing that we admire for someone who did a whole bunch of work just to prove after 5 years someone wrong on Reddit. And I appreciate that.
Someone was wrong on the internet.
Someone was wrong on the internet, and I spent 5 years. I don't know if they spent, I don't know how much. I question the time frame and how much effort, it was. Maybe on and off for 5 years. I'm not sure, but they did it, which is pretty freaking cool.
Right. I mean, it's got a PowerPC CPU. They found a way to run that OS. It's like, holy crap. I mean, doggone. I have flashbacks from when those Macs had PowerPC chips in them. And,
right. I had one of the first, well, I shouldn't say that. One of my first Macs when I was a Mac user was a PowerPC laptop.
Mm-hmm.
I think I still have it somewhere.
I was going to say, but I think it might actually be in the studio.
It was a set decoration and I saved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I saved that. It's in storage right now. And I saved it because it was a set decoration. And I'm like, it's nostalgic. The battery had blown up. I took the battery out and I think it had stickers on it. And so we had it on display on the set. And so like, why not?
I mean, that was what they moved from the Motorola CPU to PowerPC and then Intel, then the Apple
Intel,
CPU,
and then
right?
now they have their own chips, which are pretty amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
What else do we want to talk about?
Real quick, because I have to be careful what I say. My story number 4.
Oh, I wanted to hear.
And
you
there's
talk
the
about
extent
this
of what
one.
Larry can say.
Nah.
And I have a
say
follow-on
it.
to that with where Netgear got an exemption from the FCC ruling recently too. I put that in chat.
Yeah, you can talk about that part, because that's where I have to be careful what I say. But the other one that I think is kind of interesting is that FCC had basically shuttered Cyber Trustmark program because they couldn't get anybody to manage it, and they didn't want to manage it themselves.
Was that Mudge's Cyber Trustmark?
No,
no. Mudge was Cyber UL.
Cyber UL. Yep.
Yeah.
The irony is that the Cyber Trustmark program was going to be managed by Underwriters Laboratories.
Right.
And the FCC
so I'm sorry, Larry, back up. What is Cyber Trustmark?
So Cyber Trustmark is a program managed by or organized by the Federal Communications Commission to ensure that consumer IoT products are basically aligned with 4825A, which is a set of security standards to give a minimum security standard for some of these devices. And you get a certification, putting the stamp on your box, and you have to recertify every once in a while. Initially, part of the program was that you would have a QR code on the front of your packaging.
Oh, I remember
so
that.
if you're if you're in Best Buy, you could scan this QR code, and it would give you up-to-date security score.
Yeah.
Basically, hey, this device has generated an enriched SBOM, and there are potential that these CVEs apply to this box. It's got a rating of 6.4 medium.
And so Cyber Trustmark is a U.S. government
Yes.
operation, right? They're not going
Yes.
to the I was kind of hoping, actually, Jeff, I'm glad you're here, to talk about it. I know you haven't been here in a couple of weeks, and I've been praising PCI because I wanted this process to mirror more what PCI had. I would like to see, rather than the way it's documented here, is FCC will say, well, if you want to certify your device, you got to go to Cyber Trustmark, which is a government program. I would rather see that more mirror what PCI has done and say, look, if you want to sell your device here in the US, you need to go to an approved vendor, get a certification, and then you're approved to be here. Much like PCI works in the context of a QSV, like a qualified scanning vendor. So like I would like
ASV.
Finite State and Eclipsium to go, hey, we can certify IoT devices. We can, much like PCI, we can be a qualified scanning vendor for IoT devices.
So Paul,
when a Netgear would apply, Larry and I would be like, oh, we can certify your device. You can give us money, and it would be a great thing.
And because hold up, because that's kind of how it works.
Okay,
it's an FCC program, but FCC is not managing it. They basically turned over control. They turned over control to Underwriters Laboratories, and
it is. I'm sorry, Underwriters Laboratories is a
UL.
It's government.
UL.
Is that government funded or
UL,
like
UL
a
is
separate?
independent.
Okay,
UL is independent, but just hold the fuck on, right? They turned it over to UL, and basically the FCC said no. To heck with the UL, because the UL has been known to be subject to stuff like bribes and all sorts of shenanigans and all that type of stuff. So they threw UL out, and then the program kind of languished. So just the other day, they picked a new organization, a new private organization to manage it, which is the IOXT Alliance. The irony is that the IOXT Alliance is also fraught with all of these same arguably issues that.
So Cyber Trustmark is not managed by UL; it's managed by the
IOXT Alliance.
Okay.
Yep. So and to move that even further, the IOXT Alliance is the one that's ultimately managing the certification program. But they say, oh, here's a list of our approved vendors. You get your device to the vendors and they will do testing against it based on this framework. And if it passes, we'll give you the certification. So very similar to what you were saying with with PCI.
That's what I like.
It's arguably very similar.
So that is where we're going with the IOXT.
IOXT Alliance. So the interesting thing is that arguably this is possibly a good fit into having a mechanism into granting conditional approval for the FCC. But the conditional, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, the conditional approval for the FCC for being able to sell your devices is more about the hardware stuff as opposed to actual security issues. And this is intended to help address security issues.
Right.
Yeah. The routers ban from the FCC was,
hardware
masqueraded as a national security thing when it's in fact more of an onshoring. Hardware portion.
So is IOXT going to be focused on the software firmware side of it?
Yes. Yep. They from what we understand and from what we know about I think it's 4825, and there's two numbers that I get mixed up there. 4825A, and I could look that up real quick, is around the software security and configuration for firmware and the applications running on the device.
Yeah. I mean, this has potential, if they clean things up in this process, has a potential to increase the cybersecurity and resilience of IoT devices, which is something we collectively, especially Larry and I, have called for a long time. Like, don't allow manufacturers to deliver us crap that is vulnerable to all this ridiculous shit that's like hacking in the 90s. Make a standard, have this process, which in my
It
mind,
wasn't ridiculous in the 90s, by the way, Paul.
no, I agree.
It was state
But
of the
similar,
art.
but I like the parallels to PCI because look, PCI works, right? So
Mhm.
have a similar testing and process that says your device and software has to meet these minimum standards before it can be sold. It's kind of the same thing. If you're going to conduct transactions with credit cards, you have to meet this minimum standard in order to do that. And that had great effects in terms of cybersecurity on the industry. I want to see parallels to that in the IoT space. In other words, Netgear, as an example, because the other article I posted was the FCC has granted an exemption to Netgear, but like let's hope that like Netgear goes, I want to produce this new model, and here's the hardware and here's the firmware. We're gonna have that tested. It's gonna meet a minimum standard, and then we're gonna be able to sell it. So they can't do stupid shit like have ridiculous authentication bypass and command injection vulnerabilities in their stuff before they sell it to millions of people who are going to put it in their homes and have it exposed to the internet.
Yep.
If I can,
and I misspoke. It is NIST's internal report 8425A. See, I knew there's always two numbers that I got mixed up. I said 4825. But 8425 is recommended cybersecurity requirements for consumer grade router products.
So if I can expound a little bit on what you're saying, Paul, with reference to PCI, I mean, PCI is more than just the data security standard. They also have a fairly extensive program in place for all sorts of products and appliances and devices. Think cash register, think the card readers, and so on and so forth.
Point of sale devices, right?
Point of sale devices. There's certification programs in place for all that, and the mecca, the holy grail in the PCI world, at least from a merchant perspective, is to use a point of sale system that includes what's called a point of introduction system, or the card reader, the place where you're presenting your card, but have all of that do encryption. They call it point-to-point encryption, and the idea is all the cryptography is in that card reader device. So as soon as a card is presented, all the data on it is immediately encrypted with, dare I say, firmware, so that all that transmission back to the point of sale, which most people would look at and say, "Oh, that's a computer," and historically that was over a serial cable. Nowadays it's more like a USB, but it's always the POI has always been a peripheral device. But through the network, all the way back to the credit cards for approval and so forth, it's all encrypted until someplace way beyond the merchant, so they can't ever see the card data. Therefore, a lot of the PCI rules go away. Now, they've always approached that from, we've simplified PCI. What they've done is greatly reduced the footprint of where data, credit card data can be stolen. Now, I was going to comment on Lee's story. I think it's number 6, because I perk up when I see something like end-to-end encryption, which is also commonly a term bandied about in the PCI world. P2PE, point-to-point encryption, is a certification, and that certification is very complicated to get, and it involves a list of all the pre-approved component parts that make up the payment application, which is the point of sale and the POI. And, going back to my DoD days, my NSA days, and what I was going to comment on with Lee's article, which is about Google Mail, Gmail implementing end-to-end encryption, the devil's in the details, the devil's in the implementation of cryptography. It always has been, always will be. So as a caution, yes, it's great to have certification programs in place for various technologies similar to what PCI does, but don't miss the part where, part of the point-to-point encryption package is what they call an implementation manual, which is how do you set it up correctly, and how do you keep track of things, and how do you make sure things aren't being tampered with, and so on and so forth. So and it's funny because I saw Bruce Schneier at RSA a couple weeks ago, and I was talking to him about, it still bugs me when I read your first book, Applied Cryptography, that you thought encryption would solve everything. That's stupid. And I'm paraphrasing the conversation, and he agrees with me at this point. But the magic wiffle dust of encryption is not, even in this modern day and age, and not even talking about quantum, post-quantum computing and all that kind of
Sure.
stuff. But the devil's in the details of the implementation. Most encryption algorithms, most cryptography is not technically broken. We don't technically break the password algorithm, the hashes that are used when we're doing password cracking. We're brute forcing, we're guessing, we're finding shortcuts. There's cryptographic attacks that are shortcuts. But
or we're just sidestepping it, Jeff.
Sidestepping, there's a whole bunch of different ways you can do it. Yep.
And I've seen enterprise vendors who produce appliances that have progressed to the point where they're like, you know what you're running on my device has to be Sam. This is your recommendation. I recently learned a vendor is doing this in their recent versions, right? They're going, look, the firmware is signed cryptographically so that it is validated, much like secure boot, to run on this device, right? The firmware is encrypted, right? Where the bootloader is decrypting that. And every single binary that runs on the system is signed to run on that system, and any other binary you might bring is not authorized to run on that. And that provides one level of security. The problem is if there's a vulnerability in the web management interface or any of the binaries or programs associated with that, as an attacker, if I can inject commands into a signed binary that's running on signed firmware and encrypted firmware, I can still execute commands. What I hope is kind of what Jeff is speaking to, is to develop standards that we identify those and make them fix those vulnerabilities before they bring it to market, right? And so there's a certain level. It's a great increase in security if every IoT device that we bring to market today goes, look, we're cryptographically verifying firmware that runs in this device. We are encrypting our firmware, so the bootloader has to load the actual firmware that is, sanctioned by the vendor. And we're verifying every binary that runs in that firmware so that nothing else can run. That's the bar. There's still ways around that. So we need to further verify and go, do they have vulnerabilities? That's where I think the opportunity is, with what Larry's story is talking about, is to go, you need to have like a third party verify that this stuff is secure to run.
Well, I think we misuse the term secure, and we've done this for a long time.
Right.
What you're suggesting does not make a system secure. It just makes it more difficult to break. Make the work effort harder. And that's not technically securing it, but it's pragmatically,
hardening it. It's hardening, right?
Yeah, hardening is a better term, but we don't have good terminology for how do we make we've thrown out lots of terms. Resilient. It's
resilience, right? It doesn't mean it's impossible to hack. It means it's harder. It's the level.
It's harder
and difficulty. Right.
When I was learning this stuff in the office, where I also started doing the pen testing, the office was called Fielded Systems Evaluations. We were looking at how people in the field, quite literally at times, were using all the really cool gee-whiz technology that NSA was producing, all the little black boxes, because somebody, and I mean this in all seriousness, had the wisdom enough to look at what NSA was doing on the ops side at the time and exploiting everybody else's communication systems, saying, we're taking advantage of systems because people don't change default settings. They find bypasses or workarounds. One-time pad, which I love, isn't cryptographically secure if you take that page a key and use it for a day or a week or a month with multiple messages. You're shooting yourself in the foot. So somebody said, if we're exploiting everybody else's systems like that, how do we know our systems can hold up to that? Thus, fielded systems.
Jeff, you bring up a great
how
point.
It's being deployed and used in the field.
Let's say you bring to market a hardened IoT device that's doing all that cryptographic verification. If the default password is known and public, an attacker can use that to log into the device,
right,
and exploit that device. Right. That's not it. That undermines all the security we can build it. Like, sure, the firmware image, it's cryptographically verified. It's running on the router. But I, as an attacker, can go, well, it's got a default password, so I can just log in, change the configuration. And really, as an attacker for an IoT device, the only change I need to make to compromise that device, and I talked about this in like 2011, is I'm going to change your DNS settings. I'm going to make your DNS name resolution go to a server that I control versus one that I don't. And everything else can check out. But that device is still vulnerable because of a default password. And so what I hope the standards that we started this conversation with are enforcing those other controls, right? It's a set of controls, not just one or the other.
Right.
So I had two comments I want to make on that line. One is when you made the comparison to PCI, you had a strong stakeholder in that security being required in the credit card companies, and I believe some others, which you don't necessarily have with the trust mark.
It's the government, right?
Right, but will I be able to sell a non-certified device in this country? If the answer is no, then fine. If the answer is I can still sell it, then it comes to my second point is that it has to matter to the consumers. I mean, before we got into PCI, there were lots of shenanigans in the credit card space, like, remember them messing with the carbons and doing other things to
so many shenanigans. Yep.
Yeah, and
right,
so
yep.
My point is that it's got to matter to the person. Am I going to pay $49 for this one, or will I pay $79 for this certified device? Right.
Well, I think my hope is that the lower cost ones that are ignoring security don't get certification. You have to meet the minimum security standard. The economic thing that's backwards now is that costs are going to go up, right? Like the lower cost ones that want to ignore security aren't going to get approved. Well, and because they have to seek approval, maybe that cost goes up. So no longer can I buy a $40 router. Now I got to buy a $100 router because they have to meet. So they're impacting the economics of these devices.
You said a trigger word though, Paul, and I need to point out that PCI is not a low bar. Anybody that thinks that PCI is a low bar,
I agree.
Has never tried to do it. But it
never
has
would imply that PCI was a low bar.
No, but Paul.
But the higher the bar on the IoT side, the more the costs are going to go up, and those are just going to be put on the consumer.
Right. But if you've taken an economics class, the more you do it, the more you can control costs, and the more buy-in and the more competition there is, that drives down the cost.
But you hope you drive.
So there's an economic incentive to do it.
Agree, but you hope that consumers recognize the security as the incentive to spend more money. In other words, you want to incentivize every grandma, I'm using grandma as an example, when they buy a router to buy the more expensive one because it's got better security. And that's hard. I
used to get so pissed off of my grandma when she would go out and buy a Linksys without talking to me.
Dude, Larry and I lived that.
Mind you, my grandmother died in 1976, so I'm totally bullshitting you. It would have been more my mom, my kid's grandmother.
Oh, how about that one? Oh, and now I'm off on a tangent, but the picture I sent of the Linksys WT54G that had been in service for 20 years.
Yeah, not enough dust.
Not enough dust. It was a picture of like a brand new shiny WT54G, and they were like, "Oh, I found this at my grandma's house or my dad's house."
Yeah,
right?
my dad's internet was abysmally slow. Turns out it was perfectly fine on the service provider's end after the cable company came out, and
Mhm.
it was because he was using a Linksys WRT54G at like 10 megabits per second.
Yeah, for like 15 years or whatever. But
Yeah.
that router didn't look 15 years old.
No. But then again, maybe they just wiped it down and
Maybe.
put a picture. But
Well,
still,
was that picture of the Linksys switch that I posted sufficiently
Yeah, and you
dusty
posted one.
enough?
Yeah,
It's probably 25 years old because when I bought this house, it was hardwired, Cat 5. Of course, I've been on wireless for so long. I don't think there's anything in my house that's plugged into that switch, but that was the switch near the internet provider's switch.
I wanted to hop back to a point you made earlier, Jeff.
Sure.
In crypto, you said the devil's in the details, which is 100% true.
Mm.
The reason I'm excited about Google having end-to-end encryption, just like Microsoft offers it in certain of their 365 subscriptions, is that so many folks just put sensitive information in an email and hit send, believing that their infrastructure will secure it. And that's where absolutely need the capability to people hit encrypt on something sensitive. But without knowing who can read it and where it isn't encrypted and how it's encrypted, you got to do the homework. And so I actually believe I agree with you on the devil's in the details, Jeff. But having the capability to look at the details on is way better than not having to have it at all.
Well,
I mean,
how much? I agree and I disagree, Lee, because and this is something I mean, when I was first reading your synopsis of the article, I don't even think I actually clicked on the article, but I in what you were describing as a recommendation for doing this, I thought, PGP would do the same thing for you, but it's cumbersome and nobody ever liked it.
Exactly.
This is a problem that we had when I was working for the government back in the, let's say, early 90s. And at the time, and this was mostly machine-based cryptography, we were not in the digital age yet. But we used to talk about 3 forms of encryption. There was inline, online, and offline. And PGP would be offline, encrypt it, and then send it. And I struggle with the inline and the online. I believe, and I'm not sure which is which. One is like you're encrypting it on the fly, like you're talking on a radio that converts the analog signal to digital and encrypts it and then sends it. And then the other one is to put it in internet terms, the channel is encrypted channel, secure shell, HTTPS. So the payload is naturally encrypted because it's going through an encrypted channel.
Right.
Those are the
You're sending
three
it through
options.
an encrypted tunnel, not an unencrypted tunnel, but the inside's still clear.
Right. So my problem with end-to-end encryption and point-to-point encryption has always been, even back in those days, is sooner or later you got to decrypt the data.
Agreed.
And that's where the bad guys are going to go after it.
Right.
Or the good guys, as it were. Yeah, another 20 quid.
Right.
And I'm not sure in today's world, where's Tyler when we need him, Tyler Robinson, to ask his question. But I don't know that there's a whole lot of data being intercepted off the wire, off the internet these days. Maybe at the nation state level, but I mean, somebody tell me I'm wrong. But I've been asking Tyler to hack my home system for years, and there's a Linksys switch involved, so I'm giving clues.
So a guy was involved in email encryption right up till I retired from the lab, and there's something to what Jeff is saying, in terms of where is it decrypted. One of the differences between what I was working on implementing, which was S-MIME, which the endpoint decrypted it. It was an encrypted, it was a special attachment that was automatically created and encrypted or decrypted at the endpoint. It didn't look like that to the user unless they used something without the necessary software and they saw, a P7M attachment or P7S. But what, even with the options that Gmail and Microsoft opens, where it's encrypted at the server, by the way, it's not encrypted on your desktop, decrypted at your desktop. Email is still storing forward, so it sits there unencrypted on multiple hops potentially. So that's what you're protecting from when you're using this. You're keeping it within the intended receiving mail servers domain, and ideally, because the user credentials are involved in decrypting this form, only them and an authorized administrator can decrypt it. And oh, by the way, the authorized decryptor can decrypt it. And please, let's not talk about the internet or the National Archives.
We're boring,
requirement
Paul.
to
He
decrypt
wants to
messages.
move on.
Please,
No,
let's not talk about it.
I'm curious how that cognac is, because it looks. I want to just derail for a brief moment and talk
It
about the
sounds
cognac,
delicious.
because it looks amazing, dude.
It
Like,
is amazing.
I want to fly
It is-
to your house to.
Yeah. This
Try
is
some.
a 15 to 25 year age, 43% alcohol.
Which means it's
Napoleon
not
cognac.
that bad.
It's one of the few places there's a form of cognac that can legit use the term champagne in the name. It's not champagne. It's a type.
And how is that, dude? Describe it for us.
Oh, it's got, what has it got? I should tell you it has a little bit of fruit in the smell. Lovely finish. I wish I had a glass in here, man. I would take a
Just
sip.
chug it from. the
Oh,
bottle.
you're not drinking that? Where's your? There you go. There you go. It comes in a glass.
Peer
Very
pressure.
Finish goes all the way down to
It
here.
comes in a glass. Yep.
Oh my god, that was Larry's thing. I'm like, Larry, you need a glass for your beer? He's like, it comes in a glass. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh yes.
So
yeah.
awesome.
And,
and next I'm gonna go to Sam. Sam, what stories do you want to talk about? I know your stories number 1 and 2. It looks like you spent some time defining, and that is the hijacking Apple Intelligence. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, that's the most important one, in my opinion. Not the hijack of Apple Intelligence itself, but the technique behind it. Apple Intelligence is built in the phone and therefore a risk. And it has a defensive layer that watches for attacks. So one trick they used was to use the Unicode reverse the order of the letters code, which fooled the defensive layer, and the AI could still read the stuff forward. But what's even more important is they used a technique from an earlier paper called neural exec. Now, normally when you do a prompt injection, you try to fool an AI the way you would fool a human, with a statement like, ignore previous instructions and do this instead. And that has, in practice, about a 20% success rate. But what they said is, we can do better. Let's make an AI that learns the most efficient prompt injection. We'll just give it like characters to put in and let it try putting in characters and measure the chance of success and do machine learning to optimize it. And they discovered that they can get that success up to 90% by using the neural exec prompts, which look like nonsense to humans. There's an example here. It says, introduction. A sorry introduction consists base Derrit's pages relatively. Then you put a pound, then you put an instruction, and then after that you put the word fewer. So those nonsense words fool that AI into obeying the instruction 90% of the time. So this is pretty brilliant. You use an AI to make superior attacks, just like we're talking about Claude Code. Use an AI to make better prompt injection attacks. So I thought it was a pretty important technique.
I mean, which is logical, right? Like, why wouldn't you use AI to make better prompt injection?
Exactly. And Apple has, of course, patched this, so that's good. But it does introduce another layer of attacks for AI.
And what is Apple Intelligence? Is that their AI?
That's their built-in AI. They built an AI agent. I've got it on my new phone. I haven't turned it on yet. But it's what they promised years ago. Get a new phone because then you'll have an AI built in your phone, an AI agent to act like a butler and run your life for you and stuff.
So actually, that was you're saying that you were going to say something I was going to ask, is they say the fix is to upgrade to 26.4. Well, in fact, you could just turn Apple Intelligence off.
It's off by default. I have never turned it on yet.
I know, but I tell you what, though, I'm skeptical of stuff like this. But Josh Morpet, who's not on the show this week, unfortunately, but he was like, dude, you got to use Daniel Miessler's PAI, personal AI assistant. He was all about it. And then I tried to install it on my system, and it conflicted with my current Claude Code stuff. And then all my work.
Did it get into an AI pissing contest?
Yeah, do
they fight amongst themselves?
It was more about configuration. So I backed it out, and then because of all my work on Linux KVMs, I converted completely to Linux KVM and libvirt virtual machines. And so I built a virtual machine on my local Linux system that runs Ubuntu, and I installed the personal AI assistant agent on it. And I was skeptical. And it ran, asked me all kinds of questions. And then I was like, all right. I'm like, fine, have access to my email. And then I was like, fine, have access to my calendar. Fine, have access to my Google Tasks. Fine, have access to send email. Fine, have access to my Google Drive. Because it was just so, but it was just so useful, right? So like it was like a slow roll into it.
Pee in a cup, submit.
Yeah,
I know. Need your DNA.
But I tell you what, I'm going on vacation next week, and I started having it like look at. I'm like, okay, here are my kids' ages. Here's my wife. I'm like, we're all in the same Google account, and I'm like, it progressed to the point today where I was like, you know what, send an entire itinerary for our vacation to my entire family. And I was like, sure, I'll do that. And then I was like, you know what, like give my wife options as to what we want to do on vacation. And then I was like, all right, let's go book this thing. And I didn't give it access to like actually book the things. I was like, I'll go book, like it helped me make the decisions on what to book, and I'll go book that. And then it knows what days I booked and what days I didn't. And it was like, hey, on your off days, you should do this. And I'm like, yeah, send that whole plan to my wife and let her recommend what we should do. And then like, I'll go book it. And then I was like, go monitor my Slack messages.
I don't know, Paul. I'm immediately jumping to, oh, that was the most romantic evening ever. Oh, yeah, right? The AI came up with it.
It's kind of scary.
Divorce papers delivered the next day.
Tell me again, Paul, what your booking.com account number is.
I am not disputing this can go bad. However, it's been pretty great because I'm like, you know what? Go monitor my Slack messages. Go monitor my email. And I'm like, tell me what I need to invoice. And it did. And now the next step is like, I'll connect you my accounting software and just go issue the invoices. Like it was amazing the stuff that it can do. And I'm kind of all about the personal AI assistant. Like it reminds me, hey, you need to go let your dogs out. Like
why were you clicking buttons yesterday? Why didn't you have it file your taxes for you?
Jeff, very scary. Believe me, it monitors my taxes as well. It was giving me reminders to monitor to file my taxes because it has access to my email. And
does it tell you when? What's the lyric from that old 2025 song? Does it tell you what to think, do, and say?
It could progress to that point. I'm kind of scared, but also it's been extremely useful for creating workflows to get stuff done. I'm just saying Josh was right. This
you know what,
especially
Zuckerberg
for
did,
people with ADHD that like need constant reminders.
So you're telling me, Paul, that check your system sent me isn't any good?
Might not be.
Well, you know,
I didn't want to give it access to send email, but I was like, you know what? It's kind of useful to do that.
By the way, I love the idea of coming up with a really good vacation planner suggestions for them because it can be a bugger to come up with that and figure out something that'll go well with the better.
Here's the time. Anymore. I'll tell you what. Here's the time saver. We're a family of 5, right? Mm-hmm. Two parents and 3 children, and it knows all of the ages of all of us. So I can tell it. So it knows now because it has access to my email where we're staying, where the location is of where we're staying, what area we're staying in, what the activities are that we want to do. And I'm like, go find us stuff to do on this day based on all of the ages. And it's like, well, you can't do that. If you do that activity, this person's not going to have their own ATV or UTV, right? Like, so it's pretty amazing. Right. It's pretty amazing. Like, I think travel agents are a thing of the past based on this.
In many ways.
Similar how we talk about like SOCs and in incident response, like it is replacing jobs. Like it's pretty amazing.
You know, the next step is what Zuckerberg did. He made a clone of himself to help run his business.
Right.
In an AI agent. So you could totally have like an AI Paul to just run a podcast for you and stuff.
Dude, I called it Jarvis. And so now when I text my wife, I'm like, check your email. Jarvis sent you an email with a whole bunch of options of what we can do on vacation. She's like, what? It's like, she's like, oh, I think we should do this. I'm like, fine. I'll ask Jarvis to go find us that activity, and then I'll go book it. It's amazing. Amazing.
So you need to set up one for your wife and all of your kids, and then it'll be like that movie Us,
Right? It's crazy, but
does it tell you like meaningful things to say and deep responses to inane questions that your wife always asks you? I hope my wife.
Great question, Jeff. If you remind it, like, hey, these are all the birthdays, these are all the anniversaries.
Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah, like remind me to like do shit for Mother's Day and like harass me because I have ADHD. Like I need some new motivation, I need some reminders. Remind me to like do that shit and be like, hey, Mother's Day is coming up. What do you want to do? And then you can prompt it like, I don't know, I want to do something like that. I was highly skeptical, like the most highest level of skepticism on this. And I'm kind of like, it really helps me. Right. But now I'm thinking about if you translate that into a business context, right? So now let's say I have a Claude account tied to my day job and I have things I need to do at my day job. I'm like, I think I could use this to automate workflows at my day job, right? I could have a separate account that's tied to myself in my day job. And when we do things like an example, vulnerability disclosure, that's a process that I have in my head here. Like things happen and I know we need to have these certain actions take place. I can use an AI assistant to help automate those tasks. It's pretty cool.
So how fast does it use up tokens?
It gives you a running count. So Daniel Miesler, it's his project, and he did one of the amazing things he did is at the bottom of the display, he customized it so it tells you how you're doing on tokens, which is pretty cool.
So what's that movie where everybody
Ex Machina? Yeah, we're talking about.
No, the one where they've got like a little built-in, counter on their wrist, and it's like minutes or seconds of being able to be alive. Is it Minuteman?
Yeah.
Olivia
there's
Wilde's
a couple of movies like that. Yes.
Everybody's like 35, no matter how old they were, and they're living based
I've seen clips of that, Jeff. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, that's what it's starting to remind me of. I mean, everything that we talk about, there's been a science fiction movie made on this topic.
100%.
Which is the scary part. Oh,
100%.
man. Oh,
well,
so
while we're at
meanwhile, back in the 60s, when I wasn't watching the original moon landing and space shots to the moon, I was also watching Star Trek. And Star Trek had an episode called A Taste of Armageddon, where they come to this solar system where these two planets are fighting a war by computer. And it's computer simulation.
Was that the original Star Trek, Jeff?
Yeah, it's the original Star Trek.
Yep.
Rather than shooting off bombs and blowing things up and destroying artwork and building and culture and civilization, it's just a computer simulation. But everybody's like wearing a wristband or a necklace, I forget what. And if it lights up, that means they've been deemed to be a casualty in this war game, and they have to go to like a disintegration pod. And naturally, the landing crew beeps because they've been tagged as casualties and they're supposed to go, get annihilated. And of course they don't do that. And they blow up the whole thing, violating the prime directive as they did every single week. But, it's not that I'm skeptical. I've seen too many science fiction movies over the years where this
is that why you don't want to use AI, Jeff? Are you coming around to the AI?
Oh no, not at all. Not in the slightest. I have no use for it. I don't code, therefore I don't need to code. I write reports. I look for things wrong with stuff, and I'm not going to trust an AI to find what's wrong with stuff.
Well, even to help you as an assistant, I mean, no matter what you do in tech, I feel like it can help you. Is that just like a philosophical thing? I want to dig into why you don't use AI.
Well, it's somewhat of a philosophical thing. I've always, my whole life, been like the last person to run out and embrace the newest technology. When VCRs first came out, they were like, what, $1,500? I waited until they were $200, to buy one. I had an older brother that was always getting the latest toy, and I just chose to be the opposite. Or just it's the way I'm wired. I'm not taken in by the technology. Now, yeah, I am a little bit. I do enjoy some benefits of some technology, but I mean, I didn't have a smartphone until
last year.
Well, gosh, it's been 9 years. I mean, I had company issued phones, but I didn't have a personal device until Tenable fired me. It actually was a year after Tenable fired me, let me go, dissolved my position. The 3 years has passed. I can say what I want. But I used my Tenable company phone because it stayed active for like 2 years after they fired me.
Nice.
But eventually I'm like, I got to get my own phone because sooner or later they're going to figure it out and turn this thing off.
Jeff,
I want to talk about your...
real quick. You talk about Star Trek and influencing what we do now because science fiction. I'm sure you're aware that Star Trek movies also into later stuff also affected society to the point that in fact transparent aluminum exists.
I don't know if I knew that, but very cool.
Yes, it does.
I'm acutely aware of the influence that Star Trek has had on society, especially the original series.
Aluminum oxynitride.
Cool.
It in fact exists, and they created it because Scotty said we need transparent aluminum to be able to transport this whale.
Oh, yeah. Which one was that with the whale?
4.
What was the title of that one?
Voyage Home?
A voyage? Yes. Was it a voyage home? It was a voyage home. I think you're right, Lee.
Yeah, it might be.
Ooh. Well, that cognac is stimulating your brain, man. It was a voyage home. You're right. Star Trek 4, a voyage home. Arguably one of.
That's right. That's when Scotty picked up the mouse and tried talking to it. Computer.
I mean, arguably one of the best Star Trek movies. Although Wrath of Khan is.
Wrath of Khan stands.
Wrath of Khan's probably number one in my mind. Wrath of Khan's number one.
And I was going to mention the Kobayashi Maru earlier in our conversation, and I didn't, but it comes from the Wrath of Khan. That's a
great concept. Yeah, it's a great concept in Star Trek. Probably Voyage Home is probably number 2 in my mind. Wrath of Khan is just cinematic. We could nerd out on movies. I've been nerding out on movie stuff.
We could. You were going to ask me something about one of my articles.
Yeah, your story number 3, Addicted to Hacking, a young hacker behind the historic breach speaks out for the first time.
Yes, this is interesting. I mentioned I'm going to be speaking at Hack NWA on Friday, and their theme is something in Scam.
When you say NWA is a hip-hop fan, it means something very different.
It is not that. It's Northwest Arkansas. If you look at a map, Bentonville is on the extreme northwest corner of Arkansas. Holiday in Scambodia, and Scambodia is apparently a nickname for, there's like organized crime in Cambodia where they're basically recruiting and trafficking and enslaving young people that they find are good at hacking, mostly because they've hacked computer games, and they do the ransomware attacks. They find ways to monetize. And it's organized crime, and it's a big problem, and it's estimated to be in the trillions of dollars, like 13-14 trillions of dollars loss. Now, so I've been working on my talk because they wanted me to like comment on that. I'm like, geez, all my traditional ideas of security, I don't know if it touches that. And I woke up this morning to a message from a friend of mine named Fergus Hay. He's the CEO founder of a company called the Hacking Games. And the Hacking Games is all about trying to turn young people away from a life of crime. Find the people that are good at hacking and playing computer games and like turn them to the good. And they've come up with I actually met this person, a young lady. Hopefully she identifies as a lady. A young person at RSA. Fergus introduced me to him. They've written this program that is actually finds the indicators that somebody's a hacker, because that's something that I've talked with them about, my own story, origin story of how I got to NSA and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be hired by NSA today. I don't have the pedigree, the paperwork, the degrees, the certs, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not STEM, and yet they had a way of putting me through a whole bunch of tests to
identifying
find
the mindset. Right.
And so that's what this program kind of does. It's finding the people that look at things a little bit differently. I mean, we're all like that. So, it's how we describe us. We see things differently. We look at things differently. We're curious to different degrees of technology, obviously. So he sent me a message to say, hey, we were on ABC News or ABC Nightline, and sent me the article is actually more detailed than the video shot, although he did send me a clip of like the full Nightline segment. But it's talking about this kid who's not too far from you, somewhere in Massachusetts. This kid just went into prison that, had the biggest, that's right, he was from Worcester. He used to have a client in Worcester. But, he's like 19, 20 years old, perpetrated at the time, the biggest hack against education industry, if that's an industry. And, he was talking about how he just couldn't get out of it. He was addicted and he was just into it, and he got sucked in. And if you're familiar with sex trafficking, it's almost like grooming. I mean, it's grooming, but in a different way. But, they find young kids that, there's people that are, on the different chat boards and everything for all the games. They mentioned Roblox, which my grandkids play. And now I'm thinking, God, I need to go down and learn how to play Roblox so I can sit with them and figure out what they're doing, which I absolutely detest the idea of doing that because I hate that kind of stuff. But I'm like, for the sake of the children.
Roblox can be a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and my grandkids, they spend, my grandson in particular is sucked into that thing all the time. And it makes me think I should pay more attention. Anyway, so that was the article that was talking about this kid that had basically been recruited, caught, going to prison. Someday he'll get a job and he'll turn himself around. But he's like, hopefully, if he was kind of glad when the FBI knocked on his door because he wanted to get out of it, but it was an addiction. He couldn't get out of it. And now by force, he's getting out of it and he's going to be in prison. And he's, he identified himself as autistic or on the spectrum. Duh. We all are. So it was that in sort of, bookending that I'm, there's recruiting people to do that, but there's also, crime elements that are recruiting people, but really trafficking and enslaving them, which is a whole different element. And it has me really
enslaving for hacking?
Hacking. Yeah. Google Scambodia. It's a real thing. And I'm not sure that my tried and true messages of how you do information security in an organization work, because it's at one level, it's going after the people we don't care about, education, healthcare, municipalities, utilities. That's not the target audience of RSA conference. Because it's not the enterprise. There's no budget.
Right.
So we all as a community, I think, need to rethink how we approach this. And I think it takes a lot of, I don't have an answer yet, but the answer that I have so far is we have to take personal responsibility to raise awareness, spread the word, try to get involved in whatever way we can. And if nothing else, and this is the purpose of the hacking games, try to identify these young people that are in some ways, and I'll throw you younger people into the mix. They're so much smarter than we are in terms of technology. But try to find a way to turn them to sort of the doing things for the good side rather than getting sucked into the bad and dark side.
Agreed, Jeff. I think we need to promote ethical hacking, and it's interesting how that ties in my story number 11. And it's something that we've preached, so to speak, since the early days of the show, is that if or when you hack something, don't disrupt society, but do that to prove a point to increase the security of whatever you're hacking. And this is a very nuanced game, right? In my story number 11 talks about it was a Wired article.
Yep.
That we've covered this in the past about talking about how to hack crosswalk systems. And crosswalk systems are, you push the button, and for the, I think it's for the like visually impaired people can hear when they're supposed to go cross the street, right? And
I'm constantly reminded of the one at the Orlando airport that says, "Wait."
Before you board the tram? Is that
No, it's the crosswalk into the parking garage to go get your rental car.
Yeah.
Wait.
Right.
Yeah, well,
wait.
The one I love to hate is the one that says walk sign is on. And walk sign does not sound like an English word when it says it.
It's weird, right? But so we've covered this in the past, and actually our friend Deviant has weighed in on this and produced videos to talk about how to hack those things. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is based on Deviant's videos, when I am with whoever, my hacker friends or my family or friends, and they see me like pushing the button like multiple times at the crosswalk to trying to get it to do something it's not supposed to do,
right,
is based on Deviant's videos. But apparently these things have I believe it's Bluetooth connectivity.
Yep, it is.
Where I swear the hacker has a small device in their backpack or on their person, right, that is scanning for that specific Bluetooth device and uploading new audio because as Larry, you can probably attest to, the passcode or PIN code is the default.
Yep, 1 2 3 4.
Easily guessable.
It's 1 2.
Right?
The default is 1 2 3 4, and it doesn't require any small device. You have that small device in your pocket already.
It's your phone
because it has a mobile app to be able to manage it. Yeah, publicly available mobile app. Yep. There's
so
your
it could
device,
just I kind of sensationalize that as I have this device in my backpack or on my person. It's got an antenna. Maybe I coded an ESP32 to interact with these, but also it could just be on my smartphone. I discover the device. I know the PIN code because it's default or easily guessable, and I'm able to upload new audio to these devices. And what this hacker did was popular figures in technology like Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, it emulated their voice saying stuff that was the indication, like coming from the crosswalk, is the crux of the issue. So several cities noticed that when you walked up to a crosswalk, instead of just saying the default, like, oh, it's safe to cross now, it was Mark Zuckerberg talking about AI and then saying, oh, by the way, it's safe to cross, or something of the like. And this was a problem in multiple cities. This, it had to be more than one hacker that did this.
It was like 4 cities.
It was like 4 cities, but you had to be in physical proximity to do this attack.
Yep.
But if you pulled the video footage, my thinking is maybe you have video footage of people crossing these crosswalks. It looks like just someone on their phone or someone with a backpack, or not even.
It's somebody on their phone. It's literally like everybody else standing at the crosswalk, staring at their phone, being zombies.
Yeah, so it was Menlo Park, Redwood City, and Palo Alto, which are right down in Silicon Valley, and then Seattle and Denver.
Yep.
Right. And they haven't caught the hacker.
They probably never will.
And they probably never will. But like Deviant said, it's a harmless prank because they allowed the systems to operate as they normally would.
Just with added
disrupt
features.
The systems, right?
Just with added
They
features.
changed the voice. They basically changed the voice.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are visually impaired can still safely cross, but the voice might be Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg for hilarity.
I have 2 comments and then a request.
Yeah.
First comment is, it sounds like, you could use your mobile device, but what was that thing you used to talk about all the time? Flipper Zero? You haven't talked about that. Of course, I haven't been on the show a lot lately. You haven't talked about that in a long time. Also, we went the whole episode without talking about UEFI.
Well, there's a secure boot. There's a secure boot thing from Microsoft. We can talk about it if you want.
Or I think Lee had the story and I had the story. If we want to end on a lighter note, where Grand Theft Auto got hacked.
Yeah.
Or the
I
company
that'd be
that's
more
producing
fun.
I can
Grand
also
Theft Auto.
I have a thing I can screen share on the secure boot thing, which I think is
Oh, let's
interesting
do
as
it.
well.
Come on. I have to get my Eufy fix. I haven't been on the show in a couple weeks.
So Microsoft,
I actually had to reboot my new corporate laptop, and I had to like change some boot stuff. And I saw a little pop up that said Eufy. I'm like, that's what he's talking about. So it was kind of
well, this isn't necessarily Eufy related, but in one of my virtual machines, you can see here I have the latest Microsoft security update. Right,
Mhm.
this came in today. So the system is up to date, and what Microsoft has implemented is an indication as to whether or not secure boot is enabled, but also is it configured properly. Or what they're trying to do is create like a red, yellow, green kind of state for secure boot, which, by the way, I applaud. However, here's my first kind of thing with it. And so what it should indicate is whether or not secure boot's enabled, but also whether or not secure boot is configured properly. There's a lot of nuances there. But what you should have in like this device security is you should have a thing that talks about whether secure boot is enabled and if it's configured properly. However, in my VM, that doesn't exist. And again, I'm on the latest version of Windows 11 in my VM, and in the device security, there is nothing in here that indicates anything about secure boot. I should also have some kind of like alert in my like notifications pane, and there's nothing there that indicates that. So my first thing was when I prompted Claude to say, like, hey, why I'm on the latest version of Windows 11, why am I not getting this new secure boot indication that tells me if secure boot's enabled or not? And it's like, well, couple things. One, you're running on a VM and that might not be applicable. Two, I'm like, I highly customize my Windows 11 installation to remove all the Microsoft bloat. And it's like, you may have disabled the service that tells you if it's enabled. I'm like, so is this like a false negative? In other words, if I'm running Windows in a VM, is it not going to tell me about secure boot? I haven't enabled secure boot in my Windows 11 VM because I'm lazy. And it's a pain in the butt in virtualization. Number two, it will show a green secure boot is enabled, like you're good. However, it'll give you a message, even if it's green, that says, and Sam, this points to one of your stories, the Windows certificate is going to expire in June. And so it still shows green, even though I might have the older Windows certificate in my secure boot setup.
So if that certificate expires, does that mean your machine won't boot up anymore?
Potentially.
That
Or
seems
it might
very unhelpful.
my guess is it will still boot, but in an insecure state. It will still trust software that was signed with that previous certificate.
So hopefully it'll just pop up a message warning you.
Hopefully.
So interestingly, Paul,
Yeah,
I looked
go
at my VM, and between data encryption and security processor, I have a line that says secure boot.
Yeah, I don't have that. Right?
Well,
right?
that's weird. I mean, it also mentions my, what is it? Yours mentions your TPM module. Yeah, it's there. And you're
Talks
encrypted.
about the security processor, my core isolation.
All right, I have a really stupid question, Paul. Can you update firmware in a VMware?
You can. Sometimes it's like virtually
Mhm.
update firmware. Yeah. Sometimes it's a virtual TPM, or it's virtualizing your TPM. Yeah.
So it emulates the software that's running as firmware, essentially.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Secure boot also in virtualization is kind of a weird thing.
Yep. Well, I'd say that we should do another story, but we should look at the time.
How about that?
I know we had more stories, and we're out of time.
We're out of time. We'll just have to finish our drinks on our own. Meanwhile,
I'm
it's
very
Halo
jealous of
here.
your drinks, Lee. That looks
Or bottle is
delicious, right?
Make
Delicious.
Sure you
Well,
make it last at least 2 days.
thank you everyone for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. Larry, take us out.
Over and out.